I'm Turney. I'm an executive director at Kavango Resources plc. We have three major projects, exploration projects in Botswana, with our primary flagship project being the Kalahari Suture Zone, which we've just recently announced a surprise drill campaign for. My goal this evening is to walk you through why it is that we've accelerated our drill plans, what is it that's caused us quite a lot of excitement internally at Kavango, and what we're hoping to achieve with these two holes that we're going to start drilling towards the end of this month. So I have to leave this disclaimer up on screen for a few moments. As usual, what I would say on a personal note, these stocks are exceptionally risky. Only ever gamble with what you can afford to lose, and be under no illusions, it is a gamble. What I would say about Kavango is that unlike most of our competitors, most of our peers out there, we have three genuine shots at potentially large-scale mineral discoveries. I've been with the company now for nearly 18 months and as a director for the last 6, and everything that we present to you is genuine, all verified, validated from external experts, and we're really charging hard at this now as we accelerate our plans as we move into H2. Now, the Kalahari Suture Zone has been known about for about 45 years. It was first identified in the mid-1970s by a Canadian aid program that flew a series of regional airborne surveys over Botswana, notionally to help that country open up its mining sector. Of course, it also acted as a foot in the door for Canadian firms seeking to expand there. Now, a lot of Botswana's geology is buried underneath what are called the Kalahari Sands. And in the Kalahari Suture Zone in the southwest of the country, the sands are between sort of 70 to 100 meters deep. And it was only when the Canadians first flew the airborne surveys over this region that the 450-kilometer long Kalahari Suture Zone was first identified. Now, this caused quite a lot of excitement at the time because it was felt that this could be an analogue of the incredibly prolific Norilsk mining centre in northern Russia. If you look at the placing of the KSZ on the western edge of the Kapval Craton, it's in a very similar location, tectonically speaking, as the Norilsk mining centre is, and gives off very, very similar magnetic readings. So there's a lot of excitement about this and quite a lot of exploration until the early 1990s. But the major challenge that companies faced was that remote sensing technology at the time wasn't powerful enough to penetrate reliably the Kalahari cover through the Karoo sediments, and to be able to distinguish between the two volcanic systems that lie underneath the KSZ. One of these volcanic systems, the Proterozoic, is about 1.1 billion years old and is much deeper and much more extensive, obviously giving off quite a powerful magnetic reading. However, the Karoo age gabbros, which are about 180 million years old, are much closer to surface, and those are our main area of exploration today. Now, what I've brought up here are some data sets from various airborne surveys that have been flown over the KSZ. So historically, exploration was limited to use of these airborne surveys, so aircraft flying over, taking magnetic readings from the surface, from the subsurface below. What you can see on the left are the results of Kavango's 2019 airborne survey, and over to the right you can see the map is plotted against the regional survey, which was flown many years before. Now, we've announced earlier this year that we were focusing our exploration efforts this year on 4 target areas, A, B, C and D, where we've been running what are known as time domain electromagnetic surveys. Now, this is a fairly recent development. It's quite new technology. It's ground-based, it's much more powerful, and it enables the contractor, our partner, Spectral Geophysics, to produce much more clearly defined underground maps, essentially, of the underlying geology. So within these areas, we've completed now 3, I should say, TDEM surveys in A, 2 in B, 1 in C and 1 in D. We'll be releasing results on B and D in the very near future, but it's the results in C recently that we announced yesterday that have really caused us quite a lot of excitement. Now, before I move on and sort of show you our latest map and this corridor that we believe we've identified, you have in front of you now a schematic of one of the typical Norilsk style metal deposits. These gabbros, similar age to the Karoo age gabbros that we're looking at in Botswana, have this very characteristic formational shape, this sort of keel of a ship and as if a gull was spreading out its wings. So we call them keel and gull wing formations. Now, at the bottom of these formations, as you can see towards the bottom of the gabbro here, you have the much denser, richer ore bodies. Now, Norilsk has been in continuous production since it was first discovered over 100 years ago, and even today accounts for a huge amount of the world's annual copper, nickel and platinum group metal production. So the primary areas of focus for exploration are in the bottom of these keels, at the bottom of these formations, but you also have ore bodies in Norilsk that occur within the wall rock as well, so these breccia formations. Now, this next slide was a very, very significant step for Kavango last year. We took our airborne data that we flew in 2019. We augmented that against regional borehole and historic drill hole data, and also from the 4 holes that we drilled in the KSZ in 2019. And what we created was the world's first ever 3D magnetic model of the Kunzi northern section of the KSZ. And what you're looking at here is a magnetic map that very, very clearly shows these very sort of Norilsk style rock formations, which align very closely with the schematic I've just shown you and are recognized as being these prolific ore bodies. And what we've demonstrated, what we've proven, is that the Kalahari Suture Zone, the Karoo Age gabbros, have quite a few, I can't give a specific number now, but we're looking in 4 target areas, quite a few of these very sort of characteristic Norilsk style shapes. Now that's very important because what that shows us is that the morphology, the rock shapes of the region are amenable to these magmatic sulfide deposits that we're targeting. Now, what we're looking at on this section is this is to highlight some of the limitations that there were historically with exploration in this region. You're looking at an airborne magnetic slice, which was taken and used in the mid-1980s for a drill decision on these 2 holes that were drilled at the centre of this square. Now, one of these holes, CKP8, was drilled in the mid-1980s and is the deepest hole that's ever been drilled into the Karoo Age gabbros. Now, we've still got the access to the core data of this hole, and we've extracted very valuable information from this using world-renowned experts, Dr. David Holwell and Dr. Martin Prendergast, who've been able to prove that the conditions were right within this system for creation of magmatic sulfides, and that's obviously the dream. That's what we're looking for today. Now, when the Canadians came to make their drill decision, they would have seen these 2 magnetic anomalies that you can see. They didn't drill this one to the left, however they did decide to drill this one to the right and didn't discover anything. We think this was their big mistake, and this is the opportunity that's now opening up for Kavango today, because what I'm going to show you on this slide is the results of the 2 TDEM surveys that we ran over those 2 magnetic targets. Now, what you can see on the right was our survey A1. We decided to put A1 right over the top of CKP8 because we wanted to understand more about what it was that led to Canadians to decide to drill that hole, which they abandoned at around about 460 meters. And what you can very clearly see here, this green formation, this is part of the Proterozoic gabbro, which runs throughout the region, gives off a very intense magnetic signal. And you can see very, very clearly here this circular prominent feature rising towards the surface, which aligns pretty much exactly with this magnetic reading. It's no surprise the Canadians, based on the data they had, decided to drill this hole because it looked like a target. What they didn't know was that that target was beyond the depths of reasonable exploration, I should say, so in excess of about 1,000 meters. However, the survey on the left, this is where things have started to get very exciting for Kavango. This was target area A2, survey A2, where we targeted this magnetic anomaly, and this now represents one of our drilling targets that we're going to be looking to drill within the next month or so. Now, I'll show you the consistency of those targets in a second, but this map here is actually much more relevant. We released an announcement yesterday where we talked about this new A to C corridor. Now, this is potentially a very significant step forward in the Kalahari Suture Zone, because what our guys have managed to do, we've got some fantastically talented geophysicists working at Kavango, led by Hilary Gumbo, who's going to be joining the company as a director very soon. He's one of the co-founders. Hilary's inspiration behind this project really has just been phenomenal. I mean, day in, day out, I see the work that this guy does, and the creativity and the talent that he brings to it really is exceptional. And what Hilary has managed to do now is he's taken a lot of the airborne data, and he's managed, he believes, to create a model of some modeling software that distinguishes between the Karoo Age gabbro, these blue markings, and the Proterozoic gabbro, which covers much more of the region. Now, You're seeing at the moment a very zoomed in view. We've got a much more extensive view, which we're keeping to ourselves for the moment, because for the time being, we're focusing very much on this northeast, southwest trending corridor that stretches from target area A in the south here up to target area C. Now, what's really caught our attention about this is we've identified now 2 targets. We know that in this loop, target is drill target A2, which is around about 450 meters depth. We know that in this target, C1, we've got a target that's around about 530 meters depth. Now, what we have also announced previously that I'm not sure the market has fully picked up on, we announced this last year when we talked about evidence of primary sulfides. Well, those primary sulfides were found in hole CKP8 at around about 440 meters depth. Now, this is all circumstantial at this point. We can't talk about mineralized systems because until we've actually drilled these holes, we won't know what the actual underlying geology is. But what we believe we are looking at the moment is that some sort of significant event occurred at depths of what are now between about 400 to 500 meters, around about 160 million years ago. And the fact that we found these 2 targets on what looks like this corridor of Karoo age gabbroic material at the bottom of the keels, nestled in the right locations, giving off very encouraging conductance readings, we're feeling quietly confident about the drill campaign that we're about to enter into. So if we take a little bit of a look at the targets, obviously this slide has been in the public domain for over a month now, and you can see very clearly here the target A, it sits just underneath the gabbro, which is very interesting because part of the geological model is if you imagine a tube of toothpaste, what can sometimes happen with these magmatic sulfide deposits is that once they've formed, they're essentially very large metallic bodies that can be sort of tubular in shape. And as the tectonic forces within the Earth's crust sort of push against each other, what can happen is that if you imagine squeezing a tube of toothpaste, easy for me to say, and the toothpaste comes out, well, the pressure within the Earth's surface can lead to these magmatic sulfide, metal sulfide deposits, I should say, being slightly pushed out of the gabbro. Now, the fact that this target is sitting just outside the gabbroic keel, we're pretty encouraged by that. I mean, that was part of the reason this was already a high confidence drill target for us. But what we're really interested in is this 3000 Siemens reading. There aren't many things that could be giving off a reading like this. We believe we've already ruled out a water body. Obviously, it won't be until we test this with drilling will we really know, but all the signs so far do look very encouraging, and particularly from a modelling perspective, everything does appear to be aligned for us to push ahead with confidence as we move into drilling starting later this month. Now, the shape of A2 is also very interesting. I gave a presentation recently to a large firm. One of their main geologists was in there, and we had a bit of a moment with him when we pulled this slide up, and it was a bit of an unguarded moment, and the exact reaction was, wow, look at that. And if you look at the shape of this body, this conductive body, and again, just to emphasize, we don't know what it is at the moment until we've tested it, but the shape of it does look very encouraging, and the fact that it's nestled right underneath the gabbroic keel does suggest that, well, this is certainly a target that we have to go and drill. So what we're now going to look at is target C1. This is new into the market. Now, where on target A2 we had 8 what are called bins showing the different levels of resistivity. Here we only have 2 bins worth of data. This is all happening in real time at the moment, so we are, I wouldn't say behind, but we are working flat out. But from the data we have, you can see the core of the conductive body is at the center, this orange marking here, and the outer shell, this yellow outer shell, this is the conductive reading that's obviously spans out from the main conductive body. Now, the Siemens reading on this target is slightly lower than the target A2, so it's giving off a reading of 2,500 Siemens. Anything over 1,000 Siemens is an excellent exploration target. Anything above 5,000 Siemens, well, that's really something to get very excited about. So we're somewhere in between the two, but we've got very viable exploration targets. And if you think in the context of the corridor that we talked about, well, there could potentially be many more of these still for us to find. The depth is about 530 meters, so this is slightly deeper, but what we're most encouraged about with this is, according to our model, this target sits, sorry, the lights have gone out, this target sits between both the gabbro and the and just outside the gabbro. So it is nestled right at the bottom. And if you imagine, and again, this might be a bit of a flight of fancy, just to emphasize we haven't tested this yet, but if you imagined a metal sulfide liquid forming at the bottom of the molten magma and imagine it spreading out, well, one might hope that it would look something like this. But again, until we've tested it with drilling, we don't know what's actually there. So I'm possibly getting a bit ahead of myself. Now, in terms of the shape of the body itself, as you can see here, it's much clearer how it sits right at the bottom and pokes just outside the keel. But what I also wanted to show in this image is you have 1, 2, 3, 4 other keels that we're also looking at in this area that we haven't yet explored with TDEM surveys. Now, we're not going to explore with further TDEM surveys until after we've drilled. We need core data now from the bottom of these keels. But what this image does illustrate is that there's still plenty of further exploration potential within this AC corridor. The fact that we've pulled up 2 high-profile or high-confidence high priority drill targets, I should say, at this stage, is obviously very encouraging, but we've still got plenty more to go at beyond the current exploration program. So in terms of our plan now, it really is all guns blazing. We received about £240,000 of extra finance over the last 3 weeks in warrant exercise. We had a drill ready target already at A2, and we were pretty confident in the initial data we were seeing out of C1, which is why we pulled the trigger on this initial 2-hole campaign. We've obviously got a 7,500 square kilometre project, so drilling 2 holes into this, isn't too much to get too excited about. But what no one has ever achieved in the Kalahari Suture Zone is to get drill core from the bottom of these keels. So whatever happens, this drill campaign will be a success, so long as we get to the bottom of the keels, we extract the drill core and we learn what is really down at the bottom. Obviously, on the way down there, if we do hit a sulfide deposit, a metal sulfide deposit, then that would be transformational for the company and, of course, for the Kalahari Suture Zone as well. So our plan is to drill the 2 holes starting at the end of this month, and we've got potential to increase the scope for drilling as well. We've built a very good relationship over the last 6 months with Mindea and with Equity Drilling. They provided us with a great deal of technical assistance, designing and engineering the holes. They've also taken over half of their fees in equity, which obviously has helped us a great deal from a cash flow perspective. So all in, these 2 drill holes are only going to cost us £70,000, leaving us with a working capital position of around about 1.6 million by the end of this month. So we're well financed. We keep our PLC overhead to an absolute minimum, so our total burn rate is around about £400,000 a year. But what we also have is quite a substantial warrant bank that is now comfortably in the money. So as more money comes into the company, we're expecting to expand our exploration programs much more aggressively. And of course, we have the Kalahari Copper Belt, which I haven't even said anything about today. Unfortunately, there isn't time. This is only a 15-20 minute presentation. But what we can assure you at Kavango is that as more money comes in, we are aggressively going to go out and drill more holes and run more TDEM surveys.
We've had quite a few questions all around the same sort of theme, which I'm sure is the forefront of most potential or current investors' minds. If the drilling is a success, what's the plan for the business moving forward? How far would you try and take it yourselves, or bring a joint venture partner, or sell the assets? What's your current thinking, Ben?
So can you see the slide that we have in front of us at the moment?
I can see the A to C corridor resistivity.
So, yeah, exactly. So our exploration focus is now on this corridor, which is in one of our licenses. If we can prove this up and prove up the entire system's potential, then it's going to open up all sorts of business opportunities for us. But our current thinking at the moment is that this particular area, this specific corridor, because it's within one licensed area, this actually might be something that we could package up as a JV in its own right, leaving us then to go and explore the rest of the region. And we haven't even really started work in the Kalahari Suture Zone South project yet either. So we're an exploration company. We're not a mining development company. Those aren't our skill sets. We want to go out and use new technology to find these deposits. But so we'll certainly be looking for JV partners. I mean, it's no surprise, of course, we're keeping various firms aware of what we're doing. It's still too early stage for them, but if we do make a discovery and we're able to demonstrate the system's potential, then probably I think what we'll be looking at is commercialization of this corridor, if it proves to be a corridor or mineralized corridor, and then that would free us up to go and continue exploration elsewhere, in particular in target area B.
Thank you. And I think you might have answered this, but just to reconfirm, because we had a couple of questions around the cost of drilling. And what is the cost of drilling each hole, and then the cost of adding an additional drill hole to this particular campaign?
Well, of course, it will all depend on depth and location. So we've got recommendations for 2 drill holes in each target at the moment. We're obviously looking to save as much money as we can at this stage because we simply don't know what's going to happen. You know, once we've got to the bottom of these keels, we're immediately going to run downhole EM. That will give us a much clearer picture with about a 400-meter radius, sort of in all directions of the hole to see sort of what else might be down there. That's an obvious first step. In terms of the cash, it's costing us £70,000 to drill both holes, and it's going to probably cost us about the same, maybe slightly more again in terms of equity at 4.53 pence a share. So it's minimal outlay at this stage for what really could be a transformational exploration campaign for the company.
I think a few people have asked you, picking up on that, why not drill more holes?
Well, it simply comes down to money. I mean, look, we have to marshal our resources very carefully. No one's ever been to the bottom of one of these keels, so we're very conscious that, you know, obviously we're very ambitious. We're going to hit this project as hard and aggressively as we can, but we obviously have to manage our money as well. So at this stage, being able to drill the 2 holes, because you've got to remember this is quite an engineering challenge as well. The drilling contractor has to go through about 70 meters of top sands to get down to the Karoo sediments. They then have to get through those sediments, and then they have to get into the gabbro itself. So at this stage, it's a little bit of sort of, you know, proof of concept. I mean, that's how we framed this year. We also want to see how the relationship goes with Mindea. You know, we put in the RNS that we are in talks about a much more extensive relationship with them. But what these 2 holes give us is the perfect opportunity to, you know, these guys have talked a great game, and to be fair, they've actually been delivering so far as well. But it now also gives them a chance to say, you know, are these the right people to engineer the right solutions to get us to the bottom of these Gabbroic keels? So at this stage, we're not in any rush to go out and sort of enter into a much more extensive drill campaign. Let's just sort of go at the right pace, get the data from these first 2 holes, and then use that to guide our future exploration. And in particular, we want to test to see if this TDEM technology, is this the right exploration kit for us to go out and explore more of these keels and identify more drill targets.
You mentioned water having been ruled out. What else? Is there anything else that could give that sort of reading?
Yeah, I mean, there could be graphite down there, could be burnt coal. I mean, there are a number of different things that you might encounter. What I would say is that those types of bodies tend to give off a much lower reading. You know, the 3,000 Siemens target in particular. I mean, look, these are spectral's words. It was their conclusion. In their view, it's a metal sulfide body of some description. Whether or not that's economic and the concentration, you know, we don't know. But it's giving off what appears to be a metallic signature. 2,500 Siemens reading on C2. You know, same sort of ballpark. But obviously then it all comes down to sort of both the amounts and of course the grades as well. So, you know, we couldn't say even whether or not it's economic. And again, that's why we need to get down there. We need to get drill core, send that off for assay testing, get samples back to the UK for our experts to go and, you know, do their analysis on as well to test the system's potential.
And that's the kind of obvious question from that. Then when do you expect, or when would you hope to be able to update investors as to the results from that drilling campaign?
Yeah, well, I mean, the main sort of risk I can see with that, I mean, obviously we've got to get to the bottom of these keels. That's the first step, and get the course to surface. The downhole EM results, well, the Spectral are going to deploy immediately, so those results should come out quite quickly. The challenge might be COVID related, so there's talk that the South African Botswana border might close, so we don't know what that might mean in terms of shipping freight from Botswana over to South Africa, because we're going to be using a laboratory in South Africa to perform the assay testing. All in, all results with samples back in the UK, I'm hoping sort of by early autumn, but obviously if we can deliver assay results sooner than that, then we will. We'll be updating the market maybe sort of mid-September, early mid-September.
And is the drilling equipment already in country?
Yeah, so Mindea is a local company. They're a Botswana locally empowered firm. So they're currently 51% owned by locals with 49% equity drilling. All of the equipment is in country. So we've got 5 vehicles heading to site. They are due to mobilise any day now. We'll put an announcement out saying when they've mobilised. But yeah, everything, and this is also one of the advantages of working with Spectral as well. Spectral also have all of their equipment in country. So nothing is being imported. It's already all available to us nationally.
Super. A bit of, I guess, kind of housekeeping type questions. What is the ownership of management? And I think you've covered it already. What's the current cash position?
So we've currently got, senior management directors and founders have got around about 24% of the company. I did like hearing Paul's boast earlier how he's got 10.5%. So we obviously double that. That's always nice to know. But we've obviously got proper skin in the game. That again is those are shares that have been bought and paid for. This isn't sort of excessive fees that have been awarded to directors through shares. This is proper commitment into the company, which is also why we put as many pounds into the ground as we possibly can. We are all in this for that big payday somewhere down the line. In terms of our current working capital position, we've got about 1.7 million in working capital. Obviously, we're going to be spending about 70,000 of that on this drill campaign, plus obviously other running costs and other exploration programs. By the end of this month, with extra warrant money that's coming in, I think we'll probably have around about 1.6 million. So we're sitting really pretty in terms of our cash position right now. We obviously also have got money ready for drilling in the KCB, which we're expecting will happen later on this summer. And with a fair wind behind us, we're hoping that we'll be able to take this rig that's currently on the KSZ and take that up to the north to the copper belt to go and do some drilling up there as well. That's our best case scenario at the moment. That's what we're hoping to achieve.
Lovely. Well, Ben, that's terrific. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.